Hello and welcome back to the Mainly Sports Podcast. He's Jeesh,
And he's Shoop.
and today's podcast is on our top 10 NFL overrated players of our generation. But before we get into that,
All right, we'd like to also make our condolences to the Shula family. Today we lost Don Shula, legendary head coach, Hall of Fame head coach, 90 years old. He has the most wins ever as a head coach in the NFL. He was 347 and 163 with 6 ties with a win percentage of .665. He was a four-time coach of the year in 1972. He led the Miami Dolphins to a 14-0 regular season. He is also a two-time Super Bowl winner in the National Football League and arguably the best coach to ever stand on the sidelines of a football field. So condolences to the Don Shula's family today, as they have lost a legend in the sport.
very true. Also, with that, we wanted to just also throw in his playing career as well. He's not known for his playing career, but he did play, and he was a very serviceable player. He did play cornerback in the league for 7 years. He was a ninth-round selection in 1951. He played for the Browns, Colts, and Redskins in that order, respectively. He played 73 games and had 21 interceptions. So not only was he one of the greatest coaches of all time, if not the best coach of all time, but he was also a very good player in his time as well. So, yes, condolences to Don Shula for sure. But now we're going to get into our top 10 NFL overrated list. Or my number 10 is Peyton Manning. And I put him at 10 because when I was making this list, I said I'm going to put this guy at 10 only because he's not as overrated as what putting him on this list would say he is. The reason why he's on this list is obviously 14 and 13 in the playoffs. That's why. He has 2 rings, but he only won 1 ring. He was carried in a body bag to his final Super Bowl in his final season. Let's be real here. 9 touchdowns, 17 interceptions. He was terrible. He got benched for Brock Osweiler. Okay, and that's only because Brock Osweiler was only on the team because John Elway gets a hard-on for players that are over 6'5" at quarterback. So I would say overrated, not super overrated. That's why he's number 10, but overrated enough that I have to put him on this list. And kind of controversial because I had his brother on the most underrated list. So I figured I'd tie it all together. So that's my number 10.
All right, Peyton Manning. I can agree with you on that one. I will say I do not have him in my list, but I did consider him for it. All right. Number 10 on my list. I wanted to put this man higher, but I just couldn't. I'm putting Kurt Warner at number 10 for most overrated. If you look at it, he had maybe 2 good seasons as a pro. There was a 5-year stretch where Kurt Warner just didn't do anything. He wasn't a starter. He wasn't playing any snaps really, and there was just 5 years of his career that were wasted. And even when he got the job in St. Louis, he wasn't what everyone was saying he was. He was a decent quarterback, but the interceptions and Kurt Warner is not a Hall of Fame quarterback. I will say that. And he's in the Hall of Fame. And that's what I'm going to say. Kurt Warner, not a Hall of Famer. Next.
I agree to a certain extent, but he does have arguably top 5 greatest story in the NFL. So I think that helps out his case for sure. I think that makes people idolize him a little bit more. And the only other thing I'll add is it's pretty easy to look good when you have Isaac Bruce and Torrey Holt. So
Right. And
yeah, and arguably one of the greatest running backs of all time. That helps as well. So yeah, I don't necessarily disagree, but I wouldn't say I wholeheartedly agree on everything you say.
Okay.
Number 9, I have Todd Gurley.
Okay.
The reason why is not when he's out on the field. It's that he's not on the field a lot. And especially if you look at since he got paid, now that was a big deal for running backs in the league. That's what got Le'Veon Bell paid. That's what got Ezekiel Elliott paid. And ever since he signed that contract, he just hasn't really been there. And it's not necessarily his fault, but he still wasn't there. And I feel like if he wasn't as limited as he was, the Rams would be a Super Bowl champion right now, and not the Patriots when it came to that Super Bowl. Um, so I do have him on my overrated list at number 9.
Yeah, ever since he got paid, he just hasn't done anything. And like the injury bug. I mean, running backs don't last long, but this guy this guy will go down as a what if, I believe. Unless he proves us wrong in Atlanta this year, then yes, I agree with you.
Mm-hmm. Yep. If just want to throw one thing, just because you said that, Matt Ryan, I don't think he's a great quarterback, but he's a very serviceable quarterback and doesn't need to rely on the run to get the offense moving. So I think that's the biggest difference that's going to help out Todd Gurley is that he won't be worked as much. And I think that Dan Quinn knows how to protect a running back a little bit more, and rather than run him down into the ground like the Rams did. So I think he has a better chance, but right now he's overrated.
All right. Moving on to number 9 on my list, we have Matthew Stafford. This guy was proclaimed to be a superstar coming out of Georgia. He got into the NFL, and he did decent. Not really, but his first year he threw 20 interceptions, and we all know the Lions were really bad at that time. And I believe that was the year they were coming off of a 0-16 season. I think 08 was that year. And then Stafford comes in. He gets him 2 wins in that year. That's not that great. He's supposed to be a good quarterback. And then next year he started 3 games and won one of them. And then they finally made him a starter. And he had that one good year. He had 41 touchdowns. But ever since then, his season high in touchdown is 32. That's average at best. And every year he's thrown interceptions after interceptions after interceptions, and he just makes bad decisions. And the money he earns right now is way overpaid from what he's supposed what his production is. So that's the reason why Matt Stafford is number 9 on my list.
I agree that he's overrated. The only reason why I didn't put him on my list is because I do have a person that played for the Lions on my list later on, but it wasn't his only place. And so anybody that plays for Lions, I just can't. I blame the Lions' inept ownership rather than the players. But he is overrated for sure. I just couldn't put him on my list because of who he plays for. Number 8 for me is J.J. Watt.
Okay.
Yeah. This goes along with the Todd Gurley thing. It seems like every single year lately, past 3 years, he has some big injury. Don't get me wrong, I think he is as good as everybody says he is. But at the end of the day, availability is the best ability. And he's not available a lot. So I'm not going to go into too much detail because I think he's super talented. I love his brother because he's on my team. Yeah, J.J. Watt, in my opinion, is just overrated with how much money they pay him and him to be a star player, the star player on that team, especially at least on the defense. Now they have Deshaun Watson on offense that people really flock to. But, yeah, he's overrated just for what they pay him and how much he's actually not there, in my opinion.
I can agree with that. He is those muscles in his shoulders and arms are just broken. And
Yep.
I don't think he's going to play a whole full season ever again just because of it, because it's just a tough injury to come back from. But
yeah,
I wish him the best because J.J. Watt is a stand-up classic guy. So
yeah.
I wish J.J. Watt the best, and I hope for a good season next year from him. All right, moving on to number 8 for me, we have DeMarco Murray. The reason why I say DeMarco Murray is because he had that hype when he was with the Cowboys in 2014. He was the greatest running back out there. And yes, he did have a great season that year. He ran for 1,800 yards. He had like 13 touchdowns. But that was the only season he's really done anything in his whole career. He played, and after that, he went to Philadelphia and was absolute garbage, mind you. And I'm an Eagles fan. Y'all know this already. He went to Philadelphia. He was absolute garbage. And then after that, he went to Tennessee, played 2 seasons, had one decent season. And after that, he was done at 29. There was so much more that DeMarco Murray could have done in his career besides that one season for everyone saying that he was the greatest running back at that time. They're not saying it now, I'm sure, but in his career, he was definitely overrated. So that's the reason DeMarco Murray is number 8 on my list.
There's only one thing you forgot, and that's that he was also overpaid. But
Yeah.
I think that's pretty self-explanatory when he's on your overrated list. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, no, I definitely agree with that, 100%. Number 7 for me, and this is the one that hurts to be on my list, is Nick Foles. It hurts so bad because I love giving you crap about him, but uh, he got traded to the Rams, and the Rams thought he was going to be their savior, or at least their franchise guy, and it didn't pan out. He almost retired, comes back, plays very good with the Eagles. When he stepped in for Carson Wentz, led him to the Super Bowl, and then he got overpaid by the Jaguars, gets injured, and then somehow, some way, the Bears make the same mistake they did with Mike Glennon and take on his contract in a trade with the Jaguars. Why they think that he's worth that money is beyond me. Why the Jaguars thought he was worth that money is beyond me. They think that he's not a top quarterback, but a starting quarterback. And I know I jokingly say all the time that Nick Foles is one of the best quarterbacks in the league, but he's a system guy. And for
Yeah.
the Eagles system, he plays amazing. So with the Eagles, do I think he's a starting quarterback? Yes. Would I have Nick Foles start over Carson Wentz? Yeah. But any other team? No. Nick Foles can be my backup, but he's not a starter for any other team besides the Eagles. So I have him at number 7 as overrated.
Yeah, I can agree with you that. So like with the whole system quarterback thing, he was fantastic with the Eagles. Of course, Philly will always love him. So Eagles fans will always love him for winning that Super Bowl. Even when he played for the Eagles for the first time in his career, he had one interception that one year. He went 27-1 or something. And,
27-2, but close enough. Yeah, it's incredible. 7 touchdowns in one game.
Yeah, and that's coming from a scrawny guy. So he didn't look like a quarterback if you look at him when he was that young. But yeah, shout out to Nick Foles for the Super Bowl. But yeah, he's not a starter anywhere else. I agree. He had it way overpaid. Number 7 on my list is more of he makes himself overrated, and that's Richard Sherman. Granted, he does play good defense sometimes, but he doesn't play defense all the time, and he gets burned so many times. If he's not getting an interception, the other team's getting a touchdown. Is basically what it comes down to. He said he's the greatest, and nobody can stop him and all this stuff. And that interview with Aaron Andrews when they played against the 49ers, and he knocked the ball away from Crabtree, and that's what did it right there. That interview, and he's a very cocky player. And if you're going to be cocky, you have to back it up. And he has not backed it up as much as what he should be.
All I gotta say is, if you come at me with a star receiver like Crabtree, that's the result you're gonna get. I like Richard Sherman. He's good. I mean, he did benefit a lot from the Legion of Boom. I mean, granted, he was part of the Legion of Boom, but
yeah, if you're out there and you have Earl Thomas and Cam Chancellor backing you up, you can definitely do it.
Exactly. Yeah, and it was a zone defense. So you have a zone defense. You only have to cover that spot. It makes you look a whole lot better than what you possibly are. Well, number 6 for me then is Reggie Bush. I think he still lives off of his college hype. I think he was so iconic in college that the name Reggie Bush just resonates with everybody. And but if you look at his career, he did have a Super Bowl with the Saints. He didn't really help very much. That was already past. He wasn't even a starter at that point. Injuries played into it a lot as well. He did have a couple good years in Detroit. Overrated, but he was overhyped coming out of college, which sucks because it shouldn't have been an overhyped thing. So, yeah, Reggie Bush definitely in the overrated list, and he's number 1 on my most disappointing list as well.
Yeah, I can see Reggie Bush being on that list with all, like you said, all the hype coming out of college, coming out of USC, being proclaimed to be possibly the greatest running back in the NFL when he retired, and he did not pan out to be the guy for the job, obviously. And he could possibly be in another video. We could make a video for NFL busts, and he could be in that as well. And Little side note: he had 1,000 yards in Miami in 2011 and 1,000 in Detroit in 13. All right, moving on to number 6 on my list, and I know Packer fans are going to hate me for it, but Mr. Brett Favre is my number 6. And the reason why I say Brett Favre is just because, I mean, yes, he threw a lot of touchdowns, but how many interceptions did he throw? The answer is 336. 336 interceptions. I believe that's the most all time. Is it not? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, he does have the most, and at one time had the most touchdowns as
Right.
well.
Yes. So, all right. So, with that being said, I mean, he's way too aggressive for one. Like I said, he throws way too many interceptions. And the last thing I'm going to say about Brett Favre is GOAT question mark and how. Please comment how Brett Favre is the greatest of all time, Packers fans. Leave a subscribe and like, and then comment on how Brett Favre is the greatest of all time.
You know, I don't disagree at all. I was actually just looking back through the notes from
Mm-hmm.
the most underrated, and
Yep.
when I had Eli Manning on my list at number 4 in my notes for Eli Manning, um, I wrote Brett Favre down on there
Mm-hmm.
in his description because people call him a turnover machine,
Yep.
but he had over 100 less interceptions than Brett
Mm-hmm.
Favre. Granted, not as long of a career, but
Right.
it was still a very long career. So um,
Yeah.
yeah, Brett Favre threw a lot of interceptions. So,
Oh, yeah.
but he also did win a lot of games. So,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, he could have had another Super Bowl in Minnesota, but he threw a pick when the game was tied, and there was less than a minute left. He throws a pick to the Saints, and the famous call with the announcer there screaming and angry at Brett Favre. Um, I love that clip. But no, that's a good choice. T.J. Hushmanzada.
Okay.
And the reason why is he only had one season of 100 plus catches, and he only had 2 seasons with 1,000 yards. If you're on the other side of Chad Ochocinco, you better have over 1,000 yards. You should be able to get the ball because Chad Ochocinco is getting covered. Um,
Yeah.
so, and the reason why I have him so high on this list is just because, not because I don't like Cincinnati, because at this time I didn't mind Cincinnati. Just T.J. Hushmanzada is known by Bengals fans as one of the Cincinnati great wide receivers, and if you look at his stats, not he's not great. He has a great name, I'll give you that, but that's it. I mean he had a good year with 100 catches. He had the 2 good years with 1,000 yards. I mean, one of the years that he had 1,000 yards, he had 100 catches.
Yeah.
The other one was just under 100 that he had 1,000 yards. But still, he didn't have the production to be one of the greatest of all time for a team. It's just that simple in my mind. So, yeah, T.J. Houshmandzadeh. And also, he played in the era where, you know, passing was starting to become a real thing. So
Right.
you had Peyton
Yeah.
Manning, you had Brett Favre, you had Drew Bledsoe that was just slinging the ball. Drew Bledsoe, granted, he was holding onto the ball a lot, which he was almost in my list, but um, so he played in a passing league. It wasn't like he was playing in a rushing league. So yeah, T.J. Houshmandzadeh is number 5 for me.
TJ Hushman's, yeah, like you said, TJ Hushman's playing on the other side of Chad Johnson / Chad Ochocinco. He saw plenty of opportunities, I'm sure, with Chad being covered. And you're right, he should have had more stats than he should have, what he
Yeah.
has. But
Also, very unathletic.
yeah,
He was super slow for his position. Larry Fitzgerald gets a lot of crap for being slow, and Larry Fitzgerald's not that slow. If you look at the Super Bowl in 2008, he had breakaway speed on that go-ahead touchdown.
yeah.
So, but he gets a lot of flack for being slow. But at least he's like 6'4" and can jump. Hushmanzada was tall, couldn't really jump, and wasn't that fast. So,
All right. I like it. I like it. All right, moving on to my number 5 now. This is going to be a fun one. Tony Romo, number 5 for me. Um, Coming from a Cowboy hater, doesn't really matter because anyone could put a thing out there for Tony Romo being overrated. Um, Jerry Jones loved him, for one. He came into the NFL and he was a backup, but then he took over the starting job. And he went 6-4 in 10 games starting in '06. And then the second year he went 13-3, which is great. But then after that, he just fell off. I mean, he went 8-5 in 13 games, got injured. And then the next year he went 11-5, and then he got injured again. It was the back problems. And once he got the back problems, he just started being an average quarterback. And when it came down to crunch time, and I know this for a fact because I watched Tony Romo play so many times. You got the ball in Tony Romo's hands, time to go win the game. No, other teams got the ball now, game over. I've seen that so many times over Tony Romo's career, which I don't understand because he's such a great announcer and he knows every play that's coming. So I don't really understand how he didn't know every play that was coming as a quarterback. But I guess it will all be a mystery. But I loved watching Tony Romo play just because I knew he was not going to beat the Eagles that much. So with that being said, Tony Romo is number 5 on my list, and I could say so much more, but I'm not.
Yeah, don't forget who his coaches were, though, too. He had Wade Phillips at the end of Wade Phillips' career and Jason Garrett. So
Yeah. But if you have, he had T.O. at the end of his career. He's had Jason Witten his whole career. He had Des Bryant. He had, I guess he really didn't have that much, but he has a few good wide receivers to throw to.
Well, no, he had Jason Witten, and that's more than enough.
Yeah.
No, I'm not saying to be, in the Super Bowl all the time. You need one tight end that's really good, but to be able to save your ass, Jason Witten's that guy. So yeah, no, I understand where you come from with that. I won't say anything on it just because you don't like the Cowboys. So
and let me just throw another side note out there. The classic game against the Seahawks in the playoffs and the fumbled snap. All right.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Yep. No. Number 4 for me is D'Angelo Hall.
Okay.
And the reason why is because the thing that made me think of it is what happened with him and DeAndre Hopkins. But I looked into it, and he led the league in multiple seasons for most yards allowed as a corner. And he was always in talks for the All-Pro team each year, and he was known as a lockdown corner for Washington. But yet he allowed the most yards, not one, but multiple seasons. So that makes it hard. He was a good returner, but and then plus to go out, he was a trash talker and everything else. And the way he went out was just, trash talking DeAndre Hopkins. DeAndre Hopkins, said a couple things back, but said that he was going to break his ankles. And during a scrimmage game, he juked D'Angelo Hall so bad on a route. It's crazy because if you mention D'Angelo Hall, and granted you know him better because he was a Washington Redskin.
Yeah.
But you could mention anybody that grew up in our time, or that watched football throughout this time. They know who D'Angelo Hall is, and only for good reasons. They never talk bad about him. So that's why I have him on my list and so high on my list, above guys like TJ Houshmandzadeh and stuff like that. So, him at number 4.
I can agree with that. I actually did not think of D'Angelo Hall, and I probably should have because he could have easily been on my list. But yeah, I know for a fact.
Yeah, you saw T.O. burning him all the time. Come on now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I saw him a lot because since I was an Eagles fan. But, all right,
And
moving on to
Jackson. Deshaun Jackson burned him too.
Oh yeah, Deshaun Jackson burned him all the time.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to number 4 for me. We have quarterback Carson Palmer, not Carson Wentz. I thought you knew. You thought I was Carson Wentz.
I was so hoping for Carson Wentz, dude. I was gonna be like, man, you flipped on him so hard since the draft.
But Carson Palmer, of course he played for Cincinnati from what was it, 6 or 7 years, and it kind of goes with the whole TJ Houshmandzadeh deal because TJ Houshmandzadeh you say was overrated, and Carson Palmer was also overrated because he had the overrated TJ Houshmandzadeh, and then he had Ocho Cinco, and then he had I can't remember who their tight end was, but I know he was a halfway decent tight end. 14 years in the NFL, and only 4 times did his team have a winning record, and only two of those came with Cincinnati. And 11-5, 10-6, decent seasons, but he did not perform in the playoffs whatsoever. His best season was with the Cardinals in 2015 when they went 13-3, and I respect him for that. He threw 35 touchdowns and 11 interceptions that year, and that's a great season, especially for a 36-year-old quarterback at the time. But they do say quarterbacks get better with age. But Carson Palmer, he could have lived up to more than what his stats show for. He threw a lot of interceptions. He threw 187 interceptions for his career, and he threw 294 touchdowns. It's not bad for touchdowns, but 187 interceptions for having the players that he had. Granted, he did play 2 seasons in Oakland, and that was a bust. But I think Carson Palmer could have done a lot more, and that's the reason why he's number 4 on my list.
All right. Yeah. I look at Carson Palmer as a guy that I feel bad for because he did.
I love Carson Palmer. I love him as quarterback, but
yeah, like I think we got to see with him in Arizona. I think we got to see what could have been rather than what was because I mean, granted, he had Chad Johnson, but he also had Marvin Lewis as his coach, and he's a joke of a coach to me, and I don't know how he kept his job for so damn long. Oakland's Oakland. They didn't even know how to use Randy Moss right. How do you not know how to use Randy Moss? You know?
Yeah.
Granted, Randy Moss did have his own personal problems there, but still, just Oakland's always just a dumpster fire ever since 2002. But yeah, I understand where you're coming from with that. I just feel bad for him more than anything. So that's probably why I didn't think of him for my list. But all right, number 3 is Josh Norman for me.
Okay.
Josh Norman had one good season with Carolina. I credit that mostly to, as much as I hate to say it, Cam Newton, because Cam Newton in the offense was a rushing team. When your quarterback is leading your team in rushing and everything else like that, you have 2 running backs that are very good in Jonathan Stewart and D'Angelo Williams. You're a running team, so you're chewing the clock up a lot, and I think he benefited from that, and also having an amazing front 7 in Carolina, and that was just one good year. And then it came time to pay him after that season, and he decided to go where the money went, and instead of having that security blanket of the front 7 that he had in Carolina, he went to Washington that needed a lot of pieces. And his first year in Washington wasn't too bad, but it was a decline from the year before. And then it was just boom, done, just dropped off a cliff right after that season. He's a joke. He runs his mouth, and he never backs it up. At least Richard Sherman has backed it up. You know what I'm saying? Josh Norman does not back it up. The only time he ever backed it up is against Odell Beckham. And I could take Odell Beckham out of his game. I wanted to put Odell Beckham on this so bad. But these players were too much for me just because Odell Beckham is super talented. Just you can take him out of the game so easily. And that's the one thing that Josh Norman was good at, was trash talking one wide receiver in the league, and that's what made him famous. So yeah, Josh Norman is number 3 on my list, and easily could have been number 1.
Yeah, I can agree with the Josh Norman. I guess like you said, he does run his mouth a lot and doesn't back it up. And once again, coming from an Eagles fan, I saw it a lot in Washington. So.
Yep. And also just throwing 2, just 'cause I thought about it again. He was cut also. They paid him. He was supposed to be their feature corner, and they just cut him this offseason. So, and he was signed as a number 2. I can't remember who he went to, but I'll look it up while you're talking. I'll mention it afterwards. But yeah, he was signed as a number 2 corner. I think it was the Dolphins, but yeah.
It might be Dolphins or the Bills. One of the.
Yes, it might have been the Bills. Yep. But either way, Josh Norman is a joke. So yeah, that's why he's number 3.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I probably should have put him on my list, but he is in my honorable mention, so that's an early surprise.
Hey, see, there we go.
All right, moving on to number 3 for me. We're gonna stick on the cornerback train, and we're gonna go with Darrelle Revis. Revis Island. See how nobody gets by Darrelle Revis, or can they? And the answer is yes, they can. His first 3 seasons in the league weren't terrible. After that, he wasn't good at all. 14 interceptions in his first 3 seasons combined, which is decent. I mean, playing for the New York Jets, he had 31 pass deflections in 2009, which is fantastic. He led the league in it. But a season after, he started 13 games. He had 0 interceptions and 10 pass deflections. What is that? And somehow he made the Pro Bowl for it. How do you make a Pro Bowl getting no interceptions and 10 pass deflections? That's not good at all. So he made the Pro Bowl on it, and the next season after that, he had 4 interceptions, which is it's all right. But after, he played another season in Jets after that, and then he got traded or he signed with Tampa Bay, and then he went to New England, and he came back to the Jets again, and just his career went downhill after he had the 3 good seasons, I think. And for someone who says Revis, if someone comes out and says they have their own island out there and nobody's allowed on the island because the ball can't go near them and the ball always gets dropped or intercepted, that's a complete lie. Darrelle Revis did not have an island. Darrelle Revis had a country. Oh, wait, I'm saying that wrong. He had not. No, the island was a hurricane hit and the island got flooded. How about that? Darrelle Revis is not a good cornerback at all, and
I'm glad this list is opinionated. I will say that. I 100% agree with you. After he left, after he left the Jets or got cut by the Jets, I think the reason why you saw his production drop the next 3 years after his first 3 with the Jets is just because he did do so well in that first 3 years that it did become Revis Island. People didn't want to throw to that side. I think that's why his stats did go down. And I think it's hard to look at corners' careers and just look at stats because you have to go through all their stats. Like he might not have had any interceptions, but you got to see like how many times it was thrown in his direction because they still get they don't get a deflection for it, but even if it's a bad throw or whatever, it doesn't matter. It goes on to their stats. So you got to look at all the stats, so it's kind of hard. But I understand where you're coming from for sure with Darrelle.
Yeah. I mean, he did win a Super Bowl, but that was with the Patriots.
Yeah, which he did. He did
perform pretty decent with the Patriots.
Yeah,
but
but I think after his initial run with the Jets, his career did start going downhill. But that's also he did have a really bad injury. So take that for what you want. You can use it as an excuse, but you're 100% right that his career did go down the drain while he was still playing. I just think it was a little bit after what you said. I mean, that's what opinions are for, though. My number 2, and the only reason why I have him above Josh Norman on this list is because they made a damn movie after him. Michael Orr. This man, they made a movie for him like he was an all-time great while he was still in the league. Granted, even he doesn't like that movie. He has come out and publicly said that he does not like that movie. He has watched it, but he never watched it again after that. It's mainly because of that why I have him on the list and so high on the list. But he was never a top lineman in the league. He was an average lineman at for a while. He was looked at coming out of the draft, obviously, as really good, but he never lived up to the hype ever. Like, not as bad as Reggie Bush because he was at least a starter for most of his career, but he was never an elite lineman like the movie would suggest that he is. So they gave him a movie like it was like Remember the Titans or something, and or like We Are Marshall, and it's nothing like that. He's not a Rudy. He's Michael Orr, an average lineman that his name will go down and be forgotten in the history of the NFL. So that's number 2 for me.
All right. Yeah, I can agree with you on that. Especially the whole movie being made about him and stuff. He's not worth being in a movie for. But I guess that's what Sandra Bullock likes to play characters in. But we'll go on now. Moving on to number 2. You said his name earlier in the list, and he's not on the list for you. But I put Matt Ryan on here at my number 2. And the reason I say Matt Ryan is because the teams he has played for and the stats he could have put up with those teams, and I'm just gonna say why he has all these touchdowns and yards is because of Julio Jones. Julio Jones is the only reason Matt Ryan is even close to being a decent quarterback. Um, he's 147 interceptions for his career, which isn't terrible, but it's not good. And the reason for that is because he forces the ball to Julio all the time. And granted, Julio Jones is the best wide receiver in football, one of them, top three. But Matt Ryan, his best season touchdowns wise was 38 touchdowns, which is a good year. And that was probably his best year because he only threw 7 interceptions. So I don't know what was going on in 2016. Went 11-5, threw 38 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Had a great year. Went to the playoffs. Had a great playoff run. Even had a great it was so great that they went to the Super Bowl. They went to the Super Bowl, and by halftime, Matt Ryan had a Super Bowl ring. By the end of the game, Tom Brady had his 5th championship. How does that work when you're up 28-3 at halftime? I don't know. So Matt Ryan not only throws interceptions and is bailed out by Julio Jones, but he is also a choke artist in the playoffs. So that's my reason for having Matt Ryan at number 2 on my list.
Okay. I agree that he's overrated. I don't blame him for that Super Bowl though. He did his job as a quarterback. He got them the lead. I blame that on
It was more coaching, but
yeah.
they're
Yep. That's 100% what it was. But no, he is. I agree that he's overrated. It did make me think of somebody because you didn't mention him, and I wanted to put him on this list, and then the fact that you just didn't mention him makes me really want to put him on this list. Roddy White.
Roddy White, yeah. I can
Because
agree with
not only was Roddy White Michael Vick's number 1 receiver, but he was also the number 1 receiver when Matt Ryan came in, and he also mentored Julio Jones. I'm not going to say he made Julio Jones what he is, but he helped Julio Jones become the professional that he is, and helped him to be able to learn how to hone his talent. So that I don't know why I don't want to go on a big tangent on him because he's not on either one of our lists, but that's just what that made me think about. But I do agree that Matt Ryan is overrated.
Yep.
All right, so I'll do an honorable mention. My honorable mention is Colin Kaepernick.
Okay.
The reason why I'm not going to get into this podcast is about sports. It's not about politics. So I'm not going to get into everything that he did, through all that and the whole problem that everybody has with him. That's between them. Either way, I don't care. But just talking football, I think the people that do support him and want him to come back are glorifying him, because he was a game manager and he was very good with his feet, great option play quarterback. But other than that, that's all he was. He wasn't an extreme arm talent. He wasn't anything like that. So I'm not going to go too into depth just because it is an honorable mention, but I don't see him as a starter in this league at all.
Yeah. I can agree with you on that. I think he lost his job in the last year he was playing anyway. But,
yeah. To be fair, he did have a shoulder injury there, so that.
Yeah, he did. All right. So I am very curious to know who your number 1 is.
My number 1, I don't know if it's too shocking. It probably is, but it's probably not where you think I'm going. Ndamukong Suh.
Okay.
Yeah. He had a good rookie season, a good second year with Detroit. But his antics, his dirty play, everything that went into him as a person, even made Detroit get rid of him. And ever since then, you don't really hear about Ndamukong Suh. Did you know that he plays for the Bucks? Not many people do, because who cares about Ndamukong Suh now? Everybody knows his name, but it's for kicking people in the crotch or stepping on their ankles, or stomping on somebody.
Right.
I think he's a dirty player. I think he is on the football field. I'm not gonna say as a person. Granted, probably as a person too, he's probably a terrible person. I can't say that because I don't know him off the field, and you don't really hear about him off the field. But if he's willing to do that stuff on the field, I wonder what he's willing to do off the field.
Mm.
So I don't like him as a person, and I don't think he's as skilled as what people think. Yeah, I don't like him in any way, shape, or form. Even when he had them 2 good years with the Lions, I still wouldn't want him on my team.
Yeah.
So yeah, Ndamukong Suh is my number one most overrated player in our generation.
Yeah, I can 100% agree with where you're coming from on that. I actually had Ndamukong Suh considered for this list, but I couldn't decide between him and Albert Hainsworth, so I just
Yep.
didn't put either one of them on the list. But
Yep. Yep.
I kind of consider him almost like the same as Albert Hainsworth, because Albert Hainsworth kind of did the same stuff on the football field, and he played the same position. So
Yep.
um,
Yeah, true.
anyway,
I
yeah,
will give you that because at least Ndamukong Suh didn't completely quit on his team.
right.
So that is a plus for him.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, go right ahead.
All right, so we're down to the number one, but first I'm going to get an honorable mention from my list, and well, you took Ndamukong Suh from me, so we're going to say Philip Rivers. And I know you like Philip Rivers. I know you say you like Philip Rivers all the time. I don't know if I believe you or not, but and don't get me wrong, Philip Rivers is a great quarterback in the regular season. Playoffs, no. I don't know. I don't want Philip Rivers on my team in the playoffs. He has more kids than he has playoff wins, I believe. And I mean, I get that the Patriots are the reason for most of that, and which is fine and all, but you've had some receivers over the years. Like you've had Antonio Gates, you've had Keenan Allen, you've had you've even had some running backs too. You had Lane Thomason, you had Melvin Gordon. Not saying Melvin Gordon's that great, but you've had players over the years to easily get you by and not messing up when it's crunch time. But
Can,
I'm just gonna say that for now. That's an honorable mention for me. But anyway,
can I just say one
yeah,
thing, please? Because I
okay,
do really like Philip Rivers. So I really want to defend him here. And I think anybody that knows sports, and I think you know this as well, um, it's hard to win in the professional leagues. Um,
yeah,
and you have to capitalize on them years that you have a chance. Like if you look at the big three in Boston, they won one championship. They
yeah,
could have easily won more, but they only won one because it's so hard to win in professional sports. And if you go and look at the year where they went 14-2, the Chargers,
mm, yeah,
um, LaDainian Thomas had a great season. Philip Rivers had a great season. They had a really good defense. Um, but if you go back and look against the Patriots, the game they lost, they had that game won. Philip Rivers put them in a chance to win the game. They were in the lead, and Brady throws a pick,
mm-hmm.
and he's returning the interception, and he gets tackled and fumbles, and the Patriots get the ball back again, drive down the field, and score the winning points. If that doesn't happen, in my honest opinion, the Chargers have a serious shot to go to the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl that year. And it didn't happen not because of Philip Rivers, because Philip Rivers put his team in the opportunity to win. It was the fact that Brady went down, he choked it, which is rare. I hate Tom Brady, but it's rare that he chokes, and he choked
Yeah,
it, and they gave him another chance, and he moved on to they won. But so in his defense, that year they had a chance to go to the Super Bowl and win it, and it wasn't necessarily his fault they lost in the playoffs. So that's all I have to say on that, though.
yeah, yeah. I can see where you're coming from with it. There is no I in team, as everyone says, but sometimes teams let you down and make you look bad. So, um, anyway, moving on to number one, and this. How do I start with this? $40 million. You're not worth $40 million, Dak. Dak
Uh,
Prescott is not worth $40 million. And I hope Andy Dalton takes over his job this year. I really do. I hate Dak Prescott. No offense to him, I hate him on the football field. This dude has not proven anything. Um, and like we said earlier, it could be with coaching. Jason Garrett has been the head coach. This is the new coach this year, Mike McCarthy. So we may see Dak do good. You never know. I do not hope the best for him because he's in the Eagles division. But if they trade him, I do hope for the best for him. I wish they would. I think the whole coaching staff has ruined the Cowboys anyway because it ruined Ezekiel Elliott. Because if they want to win games, they got to give Zeke the ball, and they don't. They hand it to Dak Prescott. And if Dak Prescott was smart, he wouldn't listen to the coaches and give Zeke the ball and pound the rock and keep feeding him. But Dak thinks he's so good, and he thinks he's the best quarterback in the world. And he's about as good as Mitchell Trubisky. Maybe not that bad, but
Jesus.
Dak Prescott is not elite at all, in my opinion. Yeah, I could ramble and ramble and ramble about Mr. Dak Prescott, but I'm not going to, and I can't wait to see them go 8-8 this year. So that's my number one.
I 100% feel like that is simply your number one only because he's a Cowboy.
I had him at number 2, and then I switched it mid podcast. I had Matt Ryan at number 1, but then I switched it. I was like, no, I hate Dak Prescott way too much.
Yeah, that's definitely anybody watching this. I want you to know that that's him saying that, not me. It's just I like Dak, dude. I do. I think he wins football games. I honestly do. Like I read a thing about Dak that about maybe the Steelers would want to sign him if the Cowboys decide not to. I would 100% take Dak Prescott on my team. And granted, we don't have backups, so that's probably why. You know, Ben's getting old. But if someone told me, hey, you didn't draft a quarterback this year in the draft, and you passed up on Jalen Hurts in this draft because you're going to take Dak Prescott, it would definitely lessen the blow for me because I really wanted Jalen Hurts, and you know that. But I'm also looking for Deshaun Watson maybe because Deshaun Watson wants to get out of Houston after next season. So
Yep.
I hold out hope, and I know it sounds weird because it's not like it's a small chance that could ever happen. But I would 100% take Dak Prescott on my team if Ben Roethlisberger after this year was like, I'm done, and Dak Prescott was the guy to take over for him. 100% I would take that any day of the week.
I think he's definitely a fringe starter, but he's not elite in my eyes. He can start, but he'll win you 8 or 9 games, I think, as long as he has good wide receivers.
See, I think that's the gap for me and you. Is you think he's a fringe starter? I think he is a solid starter. I'm not gonna say he's a great quarterback, but I think he's a solid starter. I would take him over, Matt Ryan. I would take him over quite a few quarterbacks in the league, to be honest, right now. So I mean, not the big ones, obviously. Not. I would take him over Aaron Rodgers if that means anything.
Yeah. I am very surprised Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady was not on your list.
The only reason why I can't put Tom Brady on my list is because he is still the greatest quarterback of all time. As much as I do think he is overrated, but at the end of the day, he's still the greatest quarterback of all time. You can't argue with 6 rings. Granted, I think that some of them do have asterisks next to them because they're cheaters.
Hold on. Let's just take a moment of silence and listen to what Shoop just said, everybody. If everybody's watching this and they know how much Shoop hates Tom Brady and he says this, just remember this.
Dude, I know I've always been honest with that. That he is, because of the six rings. I think that he is a system quarterback.
Yeah.
I think Bill Belichick.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think Bill Belichick is the main reason why he has 6 rings. But at the end of the day, he's still on the field and he has to perform what Bill Belichick wants him to, and execute and show that vision, make that vision come to reality on the field. And them two together is the greatest coach-player combo in NFL history. There's no debating it. And Tom Brady is arguably the greatest quarterback of all time. I do see asterisks next to a couple of his Super Bowls. You have the Deflate Gate, but he ended up winning that Super Bowl without deflated footballs. So you really can't take that away from him, but you don't know how long throughout the season he was using deflated footballs. So that gives an advantage. And then Spygate. So there is a couple asterisks next to Super Bowls, but at the end of the day, he was a winner. So
I believe one of them asterisks next to the Super Bowl was the win against the Eagles.
yeah.
So Eagles should have 2 Super Bowls right now.
Yeah, so let's have a moment of silence for all the Eagles fans that have lived in misery because the Patriots are
Right.
cheats. But no, I couldn't put him on the list. And then Aaron Rodgers, I couldn't put him on this list either. I mean, I could have taken Peyton Manning out and put Aaron Rodgers in, because Aaron Rodgers' playoff numbers are almost just as bad. But I just feel like Peyton Manning is looked at as, one of the greatest of all time. So is Aaron Rodgers, but they say mechanically. They never say he's one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. They say he's one of the greatest mechanical quarterbacks of all time. So I think that's the biggest difference between them two. So that's why I didn't have Aaron Rodgers in.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that.
So, yep, that's my reasoning, I guess, for all that.
Anyway, either way, this was fun. Another great podcast with me and Shoop. Like we said earlier in the broadcast, shout out to the Shula family and paying our respects for him and all he's done for the National Football League. And also, happy birthday, Rory McIlroy, if you're watching, which I know you're not.
I got another shout out.
Oh, okay. Let's hear it.
What about, maybe the greatest minor league baseball player to ever play, right?
Yeah.
What's his Xavier Scruggs? Huh?
Xavier Scruggs.
Yeah, shout out to
Mr.
Xavier
Field.
Scruggs.
Yeah. Yeah, he also played for the St. Louis Cardinals in the Major League Baseball. So,
And hit a home run.
and hit a home run.
Yeah. So I'm actually, honestly, and since we're saying this on the podcast, he liked one of our Instagram posts, which is really cool. It's the first one to happen. He's not super famous, but he's still an athlete and talented enough to get to the major leagues.
Hey, talented enough to hit one home run in the major league, something that we have not done. So
Exactly. And he's, from what you were saying, has a really good minor league career. So I'm going to look more into his career now because I just became a fan before this podcast started. So shout out to Xavier Scruggs.
Thanks for listening to the Mainly Sports Podcast with Shoop and Jeesh. Make sure to leave a comment and give us your top 10 list. Also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and follow us on Instagram at mainly_sports. And that's mainly_sports, MAINELY_SPORTZ. Thank you. Till next time.